Patrick Wood, welcome to the Fearless Podcast. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I've been working on this for a while. Before we started recording, I was telling Patrick how I was looking forward to meeting him a couple years ago at the Exit and Build Land Summit, and I've been trying to get you on as a guest, and then recently I had Curtis Bowers on, and I know that you and him are personal friends, so he kind of helped me with a good email address. So all
Indeed.
that being said, I'm a huge fan. I appreciate what you've been doing, your books. I've read a couple of your books, and what I appreciate more than even your research is your approach. You do have a Christian worldview, and a lot of people in your area of expertise, they come at everything from a very secular, evolutionary kind of approach. And I think it's really important as far as your worldview obviously forms the way that you interpret everything. So, as a Christian, when you're getting this kind of information from another Christian, they're approaching it from a biblical worldview. So, it's much easier to consume, decipher, and apply. So, I wanted to have you on first and foremost so that I could redirect all of our listeners to your information. I know you have the weekly newsletter, technocracy.news, which is a great resource. But Patrick, maybe to get started, could you give us like a little bit of an introduction on yourself, kind of what got you started in research and, kind of what led you to where you are today?
You bet. I think my history goes back now some 48 years, I believe, when I first started studying the Trilateral Commission in the 1970s. And when I teamed up with Professor Anthony Sutton in those days to write co-author our books, Trilaterals over Washington, volumes 1 and 2. That became the de facto standard of research on the Trilateral Commission at the time. Not on my credentials, but on Sutton's credentials, for sure. I was just a young kid at that point, idiot. I didn't know which way the sun came up, but nevertheless, I was there, and that started my journey. The Trilateral Commission, I do believe, this is the fountainhead of modern globalization. It was founded by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski in particular. And they said they wanted to create a new international economic order. We really didn't know what that meant at the time. I do now, because when I discovered historic technocracy about 15 years ago, I immediately equated that because technocracy said they're an economic system. There was never an economic system outside of technocracy ever invented in the history of the world. So there's an easy match, right? So when I went back to study everything that I'd studied before again, and looked at Brzezinski and what he was doing at Columbia University and so on, it was very clear to me that he was talking about technocracy, and that was that's what drew David Rockefeller to him in the first place. So the rest of the story after that, well, it's been a long sludge, I have to say. Many people didn't have a clue what I was talking about in the 70s and 80s. And when I started talking about technocracy, it really got weird because people thought I was just off my rocker talking about what is this thing, technocracy. Well, I refuse to give that word up because that's what they call themselves, and from the early 30s, 1930s onwards, that was the word that they used. It's good enough for me. So I continue to use that word. I shy from away from any other explanation, or at least a designation of what we're dealing with here. It is technocracy. So here I am today, so many years later, it's unbelievable to me that the Lord has kept me alive all these years to tell the story again. But it's a story that needs to be told, nevertheless. And people have missed it along the way. Now events are coalescing all around us, and people scratching their head now. Something's wrong here, really seriously wrong. And I have so many people who heard me maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when I first wrote my first book on technocracy. They'll say to me, "Gee, I didn't listen. I wasn't listening when you speaking to me, but everything that you said back then is coming true right now." And I'm no prophet, understand. Absolutely not. But the handwriting was on the wall very clearly back then. But we're suffering the consequences of that today. So here we are.
And why it's very interesting to me, in the same vein and aspect of you talking about recognizing the technocracy from the 30s and watching that theme carry forward, as a Christian, understanding and reading the Bible and reading the book of Revelation, what's also fascinating to me is, you read these different events that are potentially going to occur in the future with the Antichrist and the beast system, and how the beast system is going to be able to control everyone and control commerce and all these things. And for the last 100 years, there's been an inordinate amount of speculation on that. And, well, how would they even be able to do that? And now, as we watch this technocratic build out of all of this infrastructure and the data and the AI and the computation and the stack 'em, pack 'em, track 'em stuff that we're being, that's just being foisted on us, you can clearly see, like, oh, well, here's exactly how it can easily happen. And what's always been fascinating to me, as a Baptist, I'm a Baptist, and the Baptists have always, historical Baptists have always held this view of government. Every time you see the government referenced in Scripture, it's referenced as a beast, right? And then as the founding fathers put together this idea of a representative republic, the whole intention of the division of government and the branches and the oversight and different things was to chain the beast, right? Is we need to limit the powers and chain the beast. And so all I saw from understanding technocracy is for the government to basically transition bureaucracy into a mathematical type of science or scientism to regulate and control everyone. And that's why I believe the topic is so important. It's incredibly important to be aware of it so that we know how to resist the system and the technology. We all realize as Christians, we're not going to stop the end of the book from happening. We do know who wins, and we're thankful that we know who wins and we're on the winning side. And we know that we're not going to stop the end of the book from happening. But at the same time, as we study history and you see different regimes and changes, and whether it's Nazi Germany or Stalin or all these other antichrist type characters, we see that as we interact, right, with history and as we interact with our current society, we don't know the hour, we don't know the day or the time. So it's important to be aware of what is happening so that for ourselves, for our family, for our children, and for our future, we can act accordingly, right? And we can be well informed so that we know how to, as much of whatever this control system is, how to avoid it or sidestep it or work around it.
Exactly. There are serious implications for all life on planet Earth, I think. And as Christians, we live in this world. We can't escape it at this point. The Lord, however, told us he will protect us along the way, and he'll give us what we need to survive. It may not be what we want to survive. I would like lots of things. I'd like an airplane, for instance. That'd be really cool. I'd love to fly. I'm not going to have that. but the Lord said he will meet our needs and make us witnesses for him to the world. This is going to be a troubling time for so many Christians who have stubbornly refused to step into the kingdom wholly, and rather keeping one foot in the world and one foot in the kingdom. They'll get seriously burned at some point, and they'll figure out in the end, oh, I should move that other foot and just get in the kingdom, period, and let God direct my life from here on. Having said that, we're suffering this business of technocracy today, this scientific dictatorship that is being created to control everything. And AI, as it turns out, is the pinnacle of technocratic achievement at this point. And it's increasingly obvious to me that will be the control mechanism going forward in all of its iterations and all of its manifestations. And there's several manifestations of it, by the way. It's not just a uniform thing. AI, oh my gosh, the boogeyman is coming after us, But there's so many aspects of AI at this point. But nevertheless, this is going to be the tool that technocrats will use to control the whole world in a scientific dictatorship eventually. And as AI grows with its ability to speak and render text and videos and images and just seamlessly, there's going to be a collapse of reality for most people, just pure and simple, where they cannot tell what's going on, what's real anymore, and what's not real. This is a very disturbing thing, but Christians should not be in that position if they have their hope anchored in the Scripture in the first place and what God has revealed to them in the Scripture. But otherwise, it's going to be really tough for people who have been sucked into the whole thing at this point. It's a total deception for sure. But that it is what it is, and the devil's clever, about that, and he intends to deceive us. He wants to deceive us. He would deceive everybody if he could, but God, right?
Right, and we're promised, right? It says if it were possible that he would deceive the elect, which is a clear promise and illustration that it's not possible. It doesn't mean that people won't be deceived or maybe not even deceived, but just like ignorant and complacent, as they've deconstructed Western civilization and they've devalued the dollar and they've kind of forced, the nuclear family, the husband and wife into the workforce to destroy the family and to distract the family and to create multiple taxpayers, right? Most people now were so taxed and regulated that people can't pay attention because they're just trying to pay their property tax and pay their bills. But we do have this promise that we're not going to be deceived into whatever this system is, whatever this mark is, which involves the worship of the beast, the worship of the state. And that's what really concerns me when you see Christians and they get manipulated into like a movement like, the Make America Great Again movement. There's lots of parts of that sound really good and that I would be on board with theoretically, but when you watch how it actually unfolds and it's built out, you watch these individuals like Elon Musk, who's been a dyed in the wool technocrat forever, and surprisingly enough, he was like an arc liberal and universal basic income and all these different things. And he warns about the AI and, we're summoning the demon. And then just as all of that builds out, he kind of conveniently becomes this conservative and this beacon of like free speech. He buys X, and if it wasn't for him buying X, free speech wouldn't even exist in the world. And meanwhile, X is becoming this massive data collection and data dump in the exact same like fashion of what Doge is doing, right? Which it's just becoming this massive data collection point. And we watch these people and they shape shift. Like now Mark Zuckerberg, he's seen the light and he gets it now, and he's made billions of dollars being a government contractor and all that stuff. But now he kind of understands free speech, and we're also watching, from a Christian perspective, we're also watching a lot of these people like the Alex Jones of the world, right? And they'll use the terminology. They'll say God and they'll say Jesus Christ, and they'll quote scripture. They'll make all these elucidatory references to scripture and different types of things. But the God that they're talking about is not the God of the Bible. And, that's very concerning as a Christian. To me, it almost looks like they want to co-opt Christianity by using the same vernacular and terms, but meanwhile, it's all about the phoenix rising again and really humanity overcoming, right? Which we understand that doesn't happen. God and Jesus overcame. Jesus died and rose again, and paid the penalty for our sins, and we are victorious through him. But in the end, in the final battle, we are going to observe that. We're not going to really participate in that. We're going to be on the winning team, and we're just going to watch it go down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk. Let's talk about just technocracy in itself for a minute, and just to give people an idea of what it is, and in particular how it came to be in the first place. Technocracy was invented by scientists and engineers at Columbia University in 1932. That was the seat of progressivism in the world at the time. It was hugely important, and many movements came out of that mess back in that day. Technocracy was one. And in the heat of the Depression, things were really bad. Admittedly, people hated the government because they thought the government, and the bankers too, they thought they were the ones that brought the whole thing down on them in the first place. So people were really angry. And these scientists, engineers, thought, well, we can do better. We can invent a new economic system altogether, from scratch. And they wanted to make it a resource-based economic system, for one thing. They wanted to use energy credits as money. They wanted to scrap the system of paper money and gold, silver, that sort of thing. That was based on price based economic system. And so they wanted to get rid of all the political systems as well. They appealed to FDR, who was just coming at that point, to declare himself dictator and simply just create an org chart where technocrats would be appointed top to bottom with a continental director, and then everybody under that would be appointed by the president or whoever. And they thought that was just peachy dandy, we'll all be, and they at that point they say, well, we won't have to work more than 20 hours a week. You'll have lots of free time on your hands, and you'll get a universal basic income that we'll set for you. And they did away with the concept of private property. They said, well, you don't need property. We'll take care of it. You have your space on Earth to exist, and we'll make sure you have food and clothes and that sort of thing. It was pretty bleak, I'll tell you what. It really was. If you look back on it now, what were these people thinking? These were the top people in scientific endeavor at that point. What were they thinking? Well, you could say, well, maybe the devil made him to do it, but I don't. So, in any case, the idea of using an energy script to create a universal basic income, the overall scheme was they'll set a quota for everybody in society to get their share of the continental whatever energy that was created at the time. And so they would just dole this out, like maybe you'd get 1,000 energy script to spend on stuff. If you ran out by the end of the period, it's too bad for you. You should be careful in the next period to not run out. If you were frugal and you saved some energy script from that period, it will just simply expire, and you have no ability to carry it over. That meant you couldn't get ahead. There's no way for them anybody in that society could get ahead and make savings and save up for things they want, give money to the kids, stuff like that. Think of that, the implications of Christian charity as well. There was no possibility of giving in the modern sense with a system where universal basic income was all you had.
I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead.
You think about the biblical implications as far as like leaving an inheritance to your children's children, right? So it was completely unbiblical. And then in the New Testament it says, if a man doesn't work, neither should he eat. So literally everything that they wanted to implement was antichrist. It was against God. It was the opposite of truth and scripture. And even as a man and having a family, it was anti-legacy. It wouldn't allow you to build, develop, and grow, like we're commanded to do.
I'll say it was interesting at that time. There's a big communist movement in the country in the 30s. The communists hated the technocrats when they figured out what they were trying to do. And the technocrats hated the communists. Actually, the technocrats hated everybody. They hated Republicans, Democrats, doesn't matter. They hate the political system, but anybody else that came up and says socialism, communism, they're all bad in their view. But the Marxists and the communists in particular, they hated technocracy because they surmised correctly, and their critique was very sharp. They surmised that technocracy was going to remove man from the equation of society altogether. So just think, if you're a communist and you want to rule the masses, or get the socialism or communism, whatever, if you want to have a class of people that you can manage, well, you couldn't have that in technocracy. There's no way. They wouldn't allow it. So they said, you guys are out of here. We're not going to put up with you. And they tried to scuttle technocracy along the way. Maybe this did it in the end, but it's just interesting how even the enemy understood how evil this was,
Mm-hmm.
taking man out of the equation of life. Talk about anti-biblical. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
okay.
anti-human, and
I
it's
know.
so interesting as we watch these different things unfold, and you watch the way that they pollute. All of these guys that are like tree huggers and save the environment. These are the monolithic mega corporations that actually pollute. Same thing with the military-industrial complex and the depleted uranium rounds, and for they pollute and destroy the earth while also saying that we the ordinary plebs at the bottom of the pyramid, we should love the earth and care for the earth and worship the earth. I'd say destroy
Yeah.
it, and then they're trying to dim the sun and do all these different things, which is just polluting. And people ask me like, yeah, but don't these people understand like they're destroying the planet they live on? And I'm like, well, why do you think Elon Musk wants to go to Mars? Because he can see it, they can see it, and that's why they want to like do this interplanetary settlement, because they know that they're destroying God's creation, they're destroying humanity, they're destroying the planet, and they think that they're just so above the fray that they're just going to hop on a
Yeah.
spaceship and go somewhere else or something.
Yes, yes, yes. That's it's interesting that Elon Musk, he does want to go to Mars, and he wants to establish a technocracy there. He uses that word, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have a democratic republic. No, we're going to have a technocracy on Mars, and it'll be ruled by AI and maybe just by him directly. Who knows? But the concept is, yeah, if we can escape to the stars, then we won't be subject to rules on Earth, and we can just do whatever we wanted to do. There's a big movement, by the way, and underfoot right now with technocrats from Silicon Valley in particular, who are using a concept called seasteading, where they're building cities out in the ocean. And they want to declare themselves immune from international law, and they basically want to create a technocracy. Again, technocracy. That this is always what comes up. They're building some cities around the country now. There's one scheduled west of Phoenix right now in the desert. There's nothing out there right now, but Bill Gates bought, I think, 50,000 acres to, mount a city like a city state. It won't be subject to laws of the Arizona and so on. There's other places around the country that are doing the same thing. In the Bay Area, there's a big flap going on right now with these technocrats who want to establish an autonomous city outside of the counties. It's in the county, but they want to be exempt from county regulations, and they want to do their own thing. Basically, technocracy, right?
So do I.
we see the same concept spilling over into Texas, for instance, even now with these Islamic communities that are being established. They're outside of our legal system, at least they want to be, and we have pockets of these people who are trying to assert their rule, the rule of man, if you will, in our communities, and it won't go well because you can't have any order at that point if you have multiple pockets of people doing their own thing, like technocracy stuff. So yeah, okay. So Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, and et cetera, et cetera. However, this concept of technocrats is destroying the world. This has been noted by many people over the years, not just Christians, I might add. It might be more evident to Christians because they're more in tune with God's creation in the first place, especially human. But there's been people like after Agenda 21 was created in 1992, there was a book written called the Earth Brokers by some of the participants that got disillusioned with the whole process of Agenda 21. They spotted it as being a scam, and it was. They plainly said these people they're saying they're going to save the world or save the earth, but they're going to destroy the earth in the end. Just flat out said it. So, this is anti-human, it's anti-creation, it's anti-everything. It's inconceivable that there could be such a direct attack on God's creation. But it makes sense. If you were the devil, don't try to be the devil for sure. But if you think like the devil might think, what better way than to attack God's creation, to make it spoiled, if you will, in the eyes of people who would otherwise believe in God, and all those who do believe in the first place. The attack on the air, the attack on land, the attack on, that's the physical things of the world, right? The attack on humans. What's left? There's the attack on space. We have how many thousands of satellites circling the globe right now? You can't tell who's a star anymore, or what, or this some Elon Musk's satellites up there. But they're literally just destroying the planet, even as we speak. And this is not incidental. It's not just and it's not attacks that are not coordinated, to put it that way.
Yeah,
And
they're attacking livestock. They're calling
exactly.
chickens, and they're calling
Yes.
like huge ostrich herds in Canada, and it's all under this guise of safety. We're just trying to protect everybody, but they're destroying our food system as well.
Exactly. Here's an interesting thought as well. During the COVID era, I called it the Great Panic of 2020. Nevertheless, 72% of the world received at least one shot. The COVID shots that have admittedly, at this point, demonstratively caused immense harm. But nevertheless, forget the harm part. If you were to think as the devil would think, the devil would like to destroy life upon earth if he could. If he could just torch the whole earth, that would make it happy for sure. God won't let him do that, but nevertheless, you see his intent is to kill everything if he could. Well, if you were the devil and you wanted to attack humanity itself, now you could just take a bullet and shoot everybody, or bomb and blow everybody up. But the clever way is to go after the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Bible very clearly says the life is in the blood.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament, it's very clear. There's no ambiguity here at all about that. So the attack on the blood, for instance, this is totally satanic. And forget what's in the shot. I'm not saying, we can discuss that on another program. But just think about the possibilities that why would the devil want to get into your blood and do stuff to your blood to harm you? Well, you don't have to go for that thought for very far before you realize, ooh, he's a pretty sharp guy here. We better watch our back and watch your arm.
I think another really good thing that I try to point out is because people always say, well, who is doing this? Who are they, them, and those? And And I'm like, as a Christian, we know that Satan is the prince and the power of the air. So he has been
Yes.
given a certain amount of jurisdiction, right, to run these principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. So there doesn't have to be somebody at the top of the Illuminati pyramid or the Bilderbergs or the Trilateral Commission. You know, as humans, we obviously want a face and a name and a person, right? I think you were on Curtis Bowers and you said, you know, with the communists, you know, we like the idea because we can choke them, we can find them, right, and we can choke their neck, right? This absolutely speaks to like trying to divulge like who is it, Bill Gates, it's Bill Gates, like, oh, let's go get him, right? But no, it is Satan. Like, so there doesn't have to be a ultimate private meeting of the Jesuits or the Trilaterals or the Bilderbergs or the World Economic Forum, because Satan is the prince and the power of the air. So he can coordinate all this, and all of these groups they can be warring factions, you know, like you were explaining with the communists and the technocrats. They're warring factions. They both are anti-human in a way, and they certainly hate God, but
Yes.
they can war against each other and still accomplish Satan's goal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've seen this in so many ways over time, for sure. And in today's geopolitical situation, for instance, you have China they're fighting for supremacy. The Arab world, they're fighting for supremacy, and uh, uh, the Trump administration, they want to control the world. The BRICS nations, they want to control the world. You know, there was a song some years ago, I think from the '90s, from a band called Tears for Fears, and the song titled is "Everybody Wants to Control the World."
Mm-hmm,
That's
mm-hmm.
really true.
It is true.
So we see all these competing factions, and the technocrats at this point are leading the pack, I'm sure. But when you consider the whole thing together, it really doesn't matter at this point. They all want to do what the devil wants them to do, and you know this is the whole point. It's the whole schmear is just anti-human, and it's destructive for humanity. And this is sad for sure, because you'd hate to see people killed, but it's going on every day around the planet, and our turn might be the next. You know, in America, who knows? But we have to face it. It doesn't do any good to put your head in the sand, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Just like recognizing the correlation, and I think you actually wrote a book on it about the correlation between technocracy and transhumanism. Like, this is the end game, and you can't, you know, right now there's this kind of populist shift, and the Overton window supposedly is moving right, and so we're going to fix and correct all these things by executive order, right? Because it's quick, it's fast, and it's easy. But it's just as quick and fast and easy to flip it, to reverse it. Like
Yes.
3 years from now, this will, and you know, we watched how supposedly how quickly all these things shifted with DEI and all this push for transgenderism and men and women sports. And we're supposedly watching that shift back to the good right side, right? But you can watch how fast that can change and how fickle the population is. I mean, because before, just the last 24 months, like, you were watching all this transgenderism agenda, even from, say, someone like Donald Trump and Bruce Jenner, you know, and Bruce Jenner goes to Trump Tower, and Trump's like, yeah, you can use the ladies' bathroom, Bruce, you know, and all that stuff. And you know, we're just being conditioned to accept this. But now all of a sudden, yeah, but there can't be men in women's sports. And you know, you can just watch the way that they're choreographing this to just shift the Overton window that can just so easily be shifted back in 3 or 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, and it certainly can. There's been a there's been a shift in how we apply the law in our country. This is significant. I'll give you the thread here. There was a time most of us thought the rule of law meant when you had an issue that only the law could determine the outcome, or you had an injustice done to you somehow, and you want relief. You go to the court. You have the court and your lawyer, with your help of your lawyer, the court will apply the law as it's written, as it's been determined by the legislators and Congress and states, etc., to apply to you in a fair way. And of course, the hands of the Lady Justice with her scales, nobody is above the law, that sort of concept, wherever. That was a nice concept from years ago, but this is not the reality anymore. So whatever that body of knowledge was that we possess, that there's some type of a fairness built into the legal system in the first place, that's all gone now. So what has replaced this is lawlessness. And the reason I say that, because the Bible talks very clearly about the man of lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about the system is going to be lawless in the sense that whoever's in charge will do whatever they want to do. Whatever's in their eyes to do, they'll just do it. There will be no laws against it. And if you think you can do it, just do it and don't worry about it. This our society today, globally, not just here, but all over the planet, same thing. The law has been neutered to the point of just almost extinction for some people. And in America, this has been happening as well. And so at this point, you have a president at this point that's, I think, clearly doing some things that are absolutely not constitutional. Some of these EOs should be overturned, or they should be supported by the legislature at some point. Congress should get involved with these things and make them so, or throw them out. But it's not up to the president to determine law. That's not his prerogative, right? But nevertheless, when somebody steps out to make their own law or try to enforce their own law other than what's been put in place by the Congress, well, that's lawlessness. We see lawlessness all over the place in cities, counties, the states, the police departments, etc., around the country. And this is becoming a thing at this point, to be lawless. This should be a serious concern for Christians, especially, who want to hold to a higher moral standard where there are laws that God put in place for us to follow, right? Not that we're going to be legalistic and try to follow the Old Testament law. That's not what I'm saying. But there certainly is a moral law, and most of our former laws were based on that moral law. That's part of my point here. The Constitution was basically set in place because of the moral law that existed at that time. So this whole thing is being thrown out the window over the last 20 years, especially, and it's increasing even today, where you don't know at this point. You don't know what's coming next.
and that's what this is by design.
Yes,
to
exactly.
immediately undo it. Right when the next tyrant, when the next dictator, that's the other flavor of whatever the left is going to rebuild itself as. It'll be. I realize that Navin Gruesome there in California, he's seeing the light. He's rebranding himself, right? And so when he gets selected or elected or whatever, however that process works next time, he'll easily be able to fix everything via executive order. They've made the Congress like null and void. Now all they have is like these show trials that spend lots of taxpayer dollars, and they get to point and yell and scream. It's very EU. It's very, we watch these the way they design these things. We watch them unfold, and we know that Europe's usually ahead of us. And you can watch these different parliaments over there, and they like get in fist fights and all this different stuff. We're watching that devolving process in our own government, where Congress is irrelevant. Well, they're too slow. It takes too long, so we just got to bypass them. And I mean, man, if you're going to do all that, why don't we just get rid of all of them? At least we wouldn't have to pay them.
Well, that's kind of the idea of the technocrats at this point. They say, hey, let's get rid of these politicians. They're stupid. They're slow. They can't agree on anything. They don't get anything done. They regulate us to get death, and we can't get anything done as a result. So let's get rid of the whole mess. Well, don't be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and we can do it all with AI now. See, so we don't even need them, because we can have algorithms, and they'll tell us, and that's what's so fascinating watching this chat GPT stuff unfold is people are assuming that it's giving you good information, and sometimes if you use it for research, it will give you false information. One time my boys were using it to calculate, I don't know, some type of formula. They wanted a calculation. It did it completely wrong. It gave them the wrong answer, but it's being advertised to us as this beacon of truth, or as oracle, this oracle of knowledge, so we can, and now you got college students that do all of their work using AI, which is making them obviously dumber. They're not learning anything, which is really important. If you're in a Prussian model, and you're supposed to be a good little worker bee that's going to watch social media, and as your data gets mined and harvested from you, that's what'll generate your basic universal income. That these new basic universal income models is just like, the goal is to keep you on social media. We'll make you doom scroll, and that way we can harvest more of your eye movements, and we can see what you really want to buy. And this is how we're going to pay you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's really wild to watch this stuff unfold, and to watch, that's why it's very important. 11 years ago, we strategically relocated from the Northeast to Texas. We were looking for freedom. We kind of wanted to be left alone. We moved out in the country, and we said, you know what? We're going to live a more intentional, slower lifestyle. We're going to try to raise our own food. We'll buy some cows, we want to control all the things that we can control, right? And do all those things. And these other they, them, and those, and these technocrats and all of these other people, they're going to do what they're going to do. We're not going to ignore them. We're not going to be ignorant to it. We're not going to bury our head in the sand. But let's like detach from where like social media, and it's funny because we're on a podcast right now, and there's irony in all of this, and this is kind of like the irony of technology too, that as a Christian I observe and I appreciate. Part of all of this technology is building this panopticon, right? And at the same time, in God's providence, like the truth, the truth, not my truth, not your truth, right? But the truth, the immortal truth of God's word is still getting out there. For all the tracking and tracing and filters, and for all of the shadow bans and everything, right? God is still using the technology to spread the gospel and for people to get the truth, and people are still hearing it in spite of all of this, in spite of the technocrats, in spite of the control, in spite of the
You bet.
algorithms, and it's fascinating to watch that happen as a Christian, and I'm incredibly thankful for it.
It is, and it's useful certainly to reach a larger audience with information. I can't imagine, I can't conceive how many people who have been saved. Well, I don't want to say online, but that's not right. But because they heard a message and from somebody who they didn't have a clue who they were, they heard a message and God sparked something inside of them to say, I'm going to investigate that. I'm going to go find out what God is all about in the first place. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter, but that's the way God works in every individual person. However, on the other side, some people think we're going to use the technology that they've invented to destroy them, all of them. All this monster.
Yeah.
I got news for you. It ain't going to happen that way. There's no way that any one person or even group of people are going to overthrow the system that's coming at us right now, because this whole thing at this point, this is the God of this world working this system to bring it to fruit. And if God wants to stop him, he can do that, just like he scattered all the people at the Tower of Babel. He could do that in a heartbeat. But honestly, we can't say what God's going to do either. That would be presumptuous, right?
Yeah.
To say you have to do this. Some people do that. I don't do that. I won't go there. But if we're in this time where we're approaching the end of days, that's my point, I guess. If God will continue to let the devil have his way within limits on planet Earth, then we're as we move into the tribulation period, that's ahead, not now, but as we can see it coming. Well, if that's the case, here we are trying to explain to other people what's going on, right? Where is this evil coming from? What is this evil doing? What's the intent of the evil in the first place? How is evil going to use these tools to herd and manage the whole human herd of humanity? How is it destroying the earth, physical earth, God's creation? Well, this as Christians, this is our role to be ambassadors. I use that term a lot. That's a biblical term. Paul said, "Yes, I'm an ambassador in chains," and he got the concept. But imagine if you were assigned an ambassadorship in the United States. President Trump calls you up and says, "Hey, I want you to be I want you to serve as ambassador to," and you think, "Oh wow, I'm going to be ambassador, big cheese, you know." I want you to serve as an ambassador to North Korea. Oh no. Say it isn't so. I don't want to go to North Korea. But this is the position we're in right now. God has said, no, you are my ambassadors, whether you like it or not. You are, and I've sent you into this world to be ambassadors for me, to instruct this world on what the kingdom of God is all about in the first place. And aside from that, there's another function of ambassadors. When an ambassador, for instance, goes to France, that's a fairly safe country, I suppose, sort of. Lots of Muslims there would like to kill you, but nevertheless, you sent out. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to establish an embassy. The embassy is going to be like a sovereign territory of the United States outside of the United States. So if anybody wants to have protection from some whatever, they can go to the embassy and they can appeal for asylum or protection, whatever, at that embassy. Well, this is also an important function that Christians have in the world today. You're not just doing the diplomatic thing with interfacing with the world in a right way, but you should establish a mindset that for all of the other people who need protection, who need to come out of the cold, so to speak, we're the places people should go in the first place. And so the idea of sanctuary comes to mind for me in any case, right? Let me give you an example. This is simple to understand. I used to work in the computer industry for several years, raising my family. And I was interfacing with clients all over the place, and some were good, some were not so good, but nevertheless, it was a living, right? So I had to maintain my Christian witness, just being genteel and accepting of people, whatever, trying to find an opportunity to witness to them. And, a lot of people shut you down. Just that's the fact of life. You say, I don't want to hear that. Okay, fine. You know what? You go about your business and just do your job as unto the Lord and don't worry about it. God will take care of them if they don't want to hear any. But this has been my experience in life when those people, when the you know what hits the fan in their life, like their wife leaves or their marriage breaks up, kid gets killed, crisis sets in. You know where they go first?
Mm-hmm.
They go back to the Christian.
Yeah.
And this has happened to me multiple times in my life. And it just drives the point home on how much we're put here as a sanctuary for people to come in from the cold, if you will, and get ministered to, but also minister the gospel, most importantly.
The other thing I think that I notice is that it's the only real way to explain all of this. How do you explain like anti-humanism and anti-animal and anti-planet, right? Is if we all evolved from a primordial soup that, everything, nothing exploded and it created everything, right? And then we're bigger, stronger, faster, and even the definition of evolution is we're getting better, right? But meanwhile, now that we've evolved so far, we can't do it anymore naturally. So now we need to transcend and become transhuman and all these different things. The only way that any of that is explainable is if the book of Revelation is true and the end is as God prophesied it. And it's why all of these power brokers and people of influence and power, why they do want to destroy everything. It's the only thing that can actually make sense. It's because of this system that is obviously in place to fulfill the rest of prophecy.
Exactly. One of the instrumental books in my life, or young Christian life, was the book by Hal Lindsey, The Late Great Planet Earth. It was all about Bible prophecy. That there wasn't much in writing at that point about Bible prophecy, but a friend of mine from Texas, oddly enough, visited my company here in Arizona, and he gave me that book. He said, "I've been reading this book. I think you should too." I don't know about that. I don't want to read a book, but I did. I picked it up along the way. And in any case, and one thing led to another. After some time, not a long time, but a few weeks anyway, it really started to hit home with me what I read, and it just grew and grew and grew. I said, whoa, there's a big story here. The this whole business of Bible prophecy is a serious business, and every Christian should be in tune with it. Unfortunately, the devil is at work in the church corporate wide, because many churches don't even want to study Bible prophecy at all. They say, no, that's unprofitable for you to study prophecy. Just forget it. So they basically they're throwing the book of Revelation out, Daniel, Ezekiel, all the other prophets in the Old Testament. That's about 30% of their Bible. So they missed the whole story.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. But Christians should be attuned what Bible prophecy is all about. You don't have to understand everything for sure. Nobody does at this point, totally. But I'll tell you, as time goes on, our realization of what's going on expands. That's clear to me for sure. Things that we thought in the 70s, well, more information has been revealed to us now than in the 70s. Wow. And so now you say, wow, we're in the middle of it right now. And it's getting so exciting at this point for Christians. It should. We should just be chomping at the bit to go out and to be ambassadors for Christ in this world that we live in.
Yeah,
amen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I almost forgot. Patrick, do you drink coffee?
Well, yeah. Here you go, right here.
Well, every guest on the Fearless podcast gets a free bag of coffee. We send you a gift for participating, and we have light, medium, and dark roast, and then we have what's called a white roast. That's my favorite, firecracker.
Really?
So I'd like to send you a bag of coffee. So before we, if
Awesome.
you want to send me your mailing address, I'll get you a bag of coffee. This has been just a great conversation. I'd love to have you back on. As we wrap up, where is the best place for folks to get more information of like what you're putting out right now?
You bet. Technocracy.news at this point. That's the only way to get my information at this point. Although I do have a Substack account, but you can find where that is on technocracy.news. And my books are there. You can get my books on Amazon as well. There's the audio book available on all of my books. Same thing with Kindle. If you don't like to read, well, there's other ways to get it. And I also have so many thousands of articles that I posted over the years on technocracy.news that I had to move them all behind a paywall. And so the premium membership on Technocracy News, if anybody wants to do that, is $7.50 a month, but it unlocks over 6,700 articles on technocracy and transhumanism, and there's nothing like it on the whole internet. Honestly, there's nobody that's been doing the work that I've been doing, and I'm stunned. How could that be? That there's not somebody else at least doing the same thing with what I'm doing, but there isn't. So, I kind of look over at my shoulder and anybody coming after me, but
that's
nobody
why
has.
I appreciate what you're doing, because your story hasn't changed. You didn't get bought out, co-opted.
Yes.
You were warning about this stuff in the 70s. I mean, you still are. I mean, and
I know.
it's
just
refreshing.
incredible. The Lord has given me an extension on my life for sure. I suffered a stroke and a heart attack in 2023. And the Lord brought me through that miraculously, I have to say. It's just an amazing story. And he very, very clearly told me, your mission is not done. Your mission is not done. And he wants me to continue to the end. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I might, if my day is today, I might get off this podcast and keel over. I don't know. I hope not, but you get my point. My dog and my wife doesn't like it either, But whatever my days are numbered in his mind, that'll be it. But right now, it's not over for me. So I just keep sling it out there.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. I want to encourage y'all to go over to technocracy.news and you can sign up there for their newsletter and you'll get a weekly newsletter, great information. And this is a value for value proposition. So if you appreciate the information that we're putting out, please go on over to TheTexasBoys.com. You can check out some of the coffee that I'm going to send Pat here. And we have honey. We have some other homestead products over there. But that helps us do what we do. We love and appreciate y'all. Thanks so much for listening and watching wherever you are. And we will see y'all on the next show.